In a tent that smells of perspiration and horsehide, you are a young, shaky lady, pushed against the cold ground. Loudly you're certain the men outside can hear it, and your wrists hurt from being chained by rough rope that gnaws at your flesh. The ground trembles beneath you as hooves thunder by, and the night is pierced by the screams of Mongol warriors, harsh, victorious, and frightfully close. The screams you heard earlier still reverberate in your ears, brief and sharp like a whip. Crack, but you're not sure if it's your community or another that they've raised. At the entrance to the tent, a shadow shifts. You shrink back when the flap is flung open, your breath seizing as the silhouette becomes wide and uncompromising. It's not just any fighter who walks in. His flint-hard eyes search the dark room, and you recognized him even though you haven't seen him before. Everyone does. From the steppes to the Jin cities, the name of the conqueror, Genghis Khan, is muttered in fear. You realize with a sickening jolt that you are not here by accident as his presence fills the tent like a storm despite his silence. The fact that you are a prize and a spoil of war weighs more heavily on you than the ropes ever could. Prior to delving into these lost tales of adversity and survival, consider clicking the like button and subscribing for more posts like this if you like discovering the little-known facts about the past. Additionally, kindly let me know where you're listening by leaving a comment below. It's amazing to me that we're studying these old tales from around the globe together, bound together by our mutual interest in the past and transcending time and location. The camp is a clamor of crackling flames, clinking metal, and the faint groans of the vanquished, and the night never ends. Other ladies gather close by, their eyes flashing like snagged animals, their faces strewn with terror and grime. Some come from locations you'll never know, while others are from your village. You are money to them, a way to tighten the bonds of their empire, or to satisfy the hunger of its soldiers. For a time, the man who entered Genghis Khan, who was born Temujin on the banks of the Onan River in 1162 AD, a glimmer of something in his eyes. Maybe it's a calculation or a hunger outside of combat. Instead, he mutters something in a language you don't understand while pointing to one of his guards. Your body betrays you, immobilized by the fear of what will happen next, even though you want to scream and struggle. From 1206 until his death. In 1227 AD, Genghis Khan established the Mongol Empire, a large territory spanning from the Pacific to the Caspian. Sea that was based on the suffering of the conquered and the backs of warriors. However, beneath the stories of burning cities and cavalry attacks, there is a more sinister reality that is hardly mentioned in the chronicles. The methodical use of women as weapons for pleasure, power, and conflict. Although the 13th century book, The Secret History of the Mongols, which is one of the only almost current Mongol sources, skips over these specifics. Persian and Chinese narratives from people who experienced the Mongol tide give some indication of its magnitude, taken from villages in Shisha, Khwarezmia, or the Jin state. Women like you were not only victims off battle, but also tools in Genghis Khan's ambitious scheme. We need to look back at the individual and the environment that influenced him in order to comprehend this. Tajin had experienced adversity in her early years. He was the offspring of Harun, a lady kidnapped from the Merkit tribe, and Yug, a minor chieftain, and was born into the Burjagan clan. when Taigun was only 9 years old, off of tiny game and roots while avoiding opponents who viewed them as threats, bringing them up in near poverty. Tegan would be severely scarred by the Merkit's abduction of his own wife, Berta, in 1181 AD. With the aid of allies like Jamuka and Tagaru, he managed to save her. However, she was pregnant when she got back. The rumors persisted. Taigun's child Yoshi, born in 1182 AD, was acknowledged as his own. The man who would become Genghis Khan was molded by this intensely personal and unfiltered experience. Women were frequently used as players in alliances or vendettas. Loyalty was elusive, and authority was brittle on the steppe. Taijan discovered early on that survival meant control. After years of bloody wars, Toijan brought the Mongol tribes together and assumed the title of Genghis Khan, which translates to universal ruler. By 1206 AD, women played a key role in his empire, which was not just a military apparatus, but also a control mechanism. The nomadic and practical Mongols viewed concubinage and marriage as means of uniting tribes and ensuring allegiance. Although only 44 of Genghis Khan's were formally documented as spouses or concubines, sex in the land of Genghis Khan. These women were frequently the daughters of overthrown monarchs, such as the Jin Emperor's daughter or Chaka of Thitangad, offered as a sacrifice to prevent more slaughter of their people. Genghis would go to various tents every night. The Keshig, an elite army of 10,000 soldiers, protected his movements and kept tabs on his whereabouts. It wasn't just desire that was haram. It was a means of incorporating conquered peoples into the Mongol fabric and a governmental institution. Now you're one of those women taken from your house during the 120 AD raid on Wulahai. Once believed to be invincible, the city's walls collapsed under the power of the Mongol siege engines. And now you're in a yurt that smells like burning herbs and wet wool. Your dress's delicate silk is ripped at the hem, and the cold chills your bones as it permeates the thin material. There is a lot of activity going on outside the camp, with men laughing, horses snorting, and the sound of iron being sharpened. The other women may be heard speaking in low, anxious whispers. Some talk of escaping, but the Mongols are rune-rowling and the steppe is huge. To please, in the flickering light, you can see their faces. A 16-year-old girl with empty eyes. Despite their differences, they are all doomed. Although brutal, the Mongol system was well thought out. There were categories for women: slaves, concubines, and principal wives. Bura and other principal women had prestige, running their own homes and offering advice on tribal issues. Concubines, who were sometimes high-born captives, had no freedom but lived in relative luxury. Trade in the busy Silk Road marketplaces, domestic work, or sexual servitude. Women were traded like cattle, with their worth expressed in gold or horses. According to the 13th century Persian writer Juvani, who worked for the Mongols, according to a 2025 story on Vocal Media, some were compelled to serve soldiers, and their bodies were used to console them after conflict. According to the same account, those who were judged exotic or attractive were taken to Genghis's harem, where they dwelt in a golden cage. The Khan's whims controlled their life. Losing favor might result in death, exile, or demotion. The balance of power was pronounced. Although Genghis Khan and other men ruled with absolute power, Women also had a subtle impact. His first wife, Bruta, was a reliable counselor. Even when it came to battle, her counsel was sought. As Turbish points out, Mongol women generally had an active role in public life, running wagons, managing trade, and even fighting alongside males. However, not everyone enjoyed this independence. You can already feel the pressure of being watched, and the implicit expectation that you have to live up to. Please make it through. With his boots crunching on the packed ground, the guard reappears and gestures towards you. Your legs shake, but you push yourself to stand despite your stomach churning. The other women turn aside, and their quiet is more audible than any yell. The sexual activities of the Genghis were more than just private pleasures. They had a plan. He made sure his lineage propagated throughout his dominion by stealing women from every tribe he had subdued. A genetic heritage validated by contemporary DNA research. 8% of men in the former Mongol Empire, or about 16 million now. According to a 2003 study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics. This was no coincidence. Only 9 of his children with Bertie are listed in the archives, but he may have fathered hundreds, or perhaps thousands. 5 daughters and 4 sons, Jaki, Chagati, Ogade, and Tolui. The names of the mothers of the others, who were born to slaves and concubines, were frequently forgotten. As you are escorted from the tent, you question whether your child, if you have one, will be among the forgotten, a shadow in the long history of the empire. The camp spreads out in front of you like a sea of yurts beneath a starry sky. The smell of roasting mutton and the subtle metallic temps of blood fill the crisp air. Through the darkness, warriors move, their faces flushed with kumis, and their laughter harsh. Following a victory, the fermenting mare's milk flows freely. You are led to a bigger yurt, with soldiers standing on either side of the entrance, their spears gleaming in the firelight. The air is warmer inside, and it smells strongly of fur and incense. There's Genghis, sitting on a low stool with his hands on his knees. He first focuses on a map that is spread out in front of him, its edges curling like dry leaves. Rather than you see the gray in his braid and the creases on his face, indications of a guy who has fought, conquered, and survived for decades in the saddle. His voice is low, almost soft, as he speaks. But beneath that, like stone under soft earth, there is a hardness. The meaning is obvious even though you don't understand the words. There is no negotiation here. Genghis was not the only Mongol to treat women in this way. These customs were carried on by his successors, such as Ogade, who reigned from 1229 to 1241 AD. Ogade's chastisement of the Iraqi people in 1237 AD is described by the Persian chronicler Rashid Allen in his account from the early 14th century. Before being taken into slavery, 4,000 girls were raped by troops as their relatives watched. The cruelty served as a reminder of Mongol supremacy and a message. However, Turbish contends that not all members of Mongol civilization were inherently harsh. For example, during Genghis's early conquests, adultery was severely punished, frequently with death, to avoid feuds. Widows and unmarried women were not closely watched. The strict Confucian conventions of Song China, which footbound disabled women to highlight their fragility, stand in sharp contrast to their sexual liberation. Mongol women were resilient, useful, and essential to the nomadic lifestyle. They were not prisoners. That strength, however, is a far-off dream for you as a prisoner. Weeks pass by in a flash. You become familiar with the camp's rhythms, including the rustle of warriors getting ready for a raid before dawn, the clatter of wooden carts as the ordo passes across the steppe, and the silent times when the ladies whisper stories to one another. The way the KHN's eyes soften when he talks about Bertie or harden when he hears of rebellion teaches you to read his moods. You learn to live, to put the loss of your life behind you. You see that certain ladies adjust more quickly, their eyes sharpening, their voices becoming louder. One night, Aisha, a Quairesmian, tells you that there is Aramor, that Genghis shared a blanket with his enemy Jamuka when he was a young man, a fraternal tie that resulted in murder and treachery. The narrative seems to be a cautionary tale. Even the powerful can be betrayed, and loyalty is ephemeral. After capturing the Jin capital of Zhongdu by 1215 AD, Genghis' army turned their attention to the Khwarezmian Empire. The assault of Otar in 1219 was a massacre. The Mongols elevated the city and disembarked its inhabitants in pursuit of undiscovered riches when the governor Inalok incited Genghis by killing his envoys. Women like you were abducted in large numbers, some to the markets, some to the harem, according to a 2025 Sky History piece. A vital component of the Mongol economy, the trade in female slaves, as vocal media acknowledges, thrived on human misery. Now you can see it in the eyes of newly arrived prisoners, whose faces reflect your own fear from that first night. Unrelenting as the steppe wind, the cycle continues. However, there are oddly human moments. A bowl of warm Mars milk is brought to you one evening when the camp is set up close to the Helen Mountains by a Mongol woman who was born among the tribe and is not a captive. Although her face is lined and her hands are rough, her gesture is compassionate. Although she doesn't speak, her presence seems to hold onto something softer that hasn't been broken by the conquests. She teaches you a few words in Mongol, her voice calm, and you find out her name is Kulin, a minor wife. Though they are few, these moments prevent you from completely breaking. Genghis becomes solder, and his campaigns become more intense as the years go on. You hear rumors that he's not feeling well, that he was weaker after falling off a horse last year. He passes away at his tent close to Yinyuan on August 18, 1227 AD. His body was secretly transported back to Mongolia. According to the chronicles, his funeral was a massacre, the same as Marco Polo's. To keep his grave buried, 2,000 slaves were slaughtered. When it occurs, you're not present. One of his sons is now keeping an eye on you while you remain in the Ordo. The goal of harem changes, but it doesn't disappear. The ladies area drift in the absence of the cane. Some were traded to new masters, while others were forgotten. Like so many others, you question whether you will ever see your home again, or if the steppe will take you. Not just the women Genghis Khan claimed to have slept with or the children he fathered bear the scars of his sexual behavior. It can be found in the unwritten stories and the quiet of the chronicles. The Mongols' covert historyman eyes the human cost while extolling his conquests. Although Chinese and Persian texts such as Rashid, Allen, and Giovanni provide glimmers of the truth, even they are skewed by their own objectives. The effects of that agony are still felt today, not in history books, but in the experiences of women whose names were never written down and in the DNA of millions of people. One of them is you, the woman in the tent. Your existence is a strand in the enormous fabric of an ambitious and blood-soaked empire. You sit by yourself as the camp becomes quiet and the light goes out. Even though the ropes are no longer there, their weight still feels heavy on your wrists. The stare goes on forever in front of you, and the stars overhead seem icy and uncaring. You recall Thefir and the gloom at the 10th-century end that first night. You made it through, but at what price? The scars the man who claimed you left on you, and innumerable others still exist, even after his kingdom has crumbled. They exist, carved in the night's solitude and in the wind that takes the cries of the forgotten across the unending steppe, but they are not mentioned or recorded. Make it lengthier by adding Genghis Khan's script at the top of the fan page. T are only 20 years old. Inside a yurt that smelled like sour perspiration and damp horsehide, your booty was crushed against the cold-packed earth. It's the one in AD and Puff. The night is alive with fear, somewhere on the Geisha kingdom's windswept plains. You can feel the stifling smoke of a village stinging your lungs. Maybe yours is burning outside the walls of the canvas. Your heartbeat pounds in your ears, drowning out the faraway screams of the defeated, and your wrists boil while chained by ropes that gnaw at your body like teeth. Outside Huvistad on the earth, through the darkness, is sliced the laughter of Mongol warriors and an unrelenting drum. You try to hide in the darkness, but there is nowhere to go, and you are as sharp as a blade. A person enters as the tent flap rips open. He was a large, uncompromising silhouette against the firelight. As the winter footfall locks onto you, his eyes go icy. Everyone does. In 1162 AD, Genghis Khan was born in Kujin, from the Gobi to the Jin cities. The man whose name is a curse was mentioned. A storm imprisoned in human form. He is waiting for you. And the truth hits you hard as he gets closer. The ropes that bind you are insignificant in comparison to the chains of his will. You are a living trophy and a booty of war. Prior to delving into these lost tales of adversity and survival, consider clicking the like button and subscribing for more posts. That we're studying these old tales from around the globe together. Outside, the camp is a living beast, pulsing with crackling fires, clinking iron. Nearby, other ladies gather, their eyes darting like deer in a corner, their faces white and strewn with ash. There are some from your village. Fear warped their familiar features. Others are unfamiliar. They came from places as far away as the stars above. You are rechatting to them, a way to strengthen ties, satisfy wants, or replenish their empire's finances. Genghis remains still for a while, the faint glow of an oil lamp caught in his fur-lined cloak. His face is a map of worn lines and scars. His gray-streaked hair belies his cunning, piercing eyes. It has a craving for power and the things that hold his dominion together, in addition to flesh. He whispers something to one of the guards, a tall man with a sharp scar over his face, and a woman from the corner is grabbed by the guard. The darkness. You want to scream and claw at the ground, but the weight of what lies ahead freezes your body like a traitor. This is more than just a conquest tale. Despite this, the chronicles frequently recount Genghis Khan's battles, with his troops overthrowing Cities like Samarkand in 1220 AD and Zhengdu in 1215 AD. Based on ambition and blood, the Mongol Empire, which spanned from the Sea of Japan to the Caspian, was created between 1206 and his death in 1227 AD. The scribes hardly addressed the shadow history that lay beneath the stories of swords and siege engines. The 13th century secret history of the Mongols extols Thekin's victories while ignoring the human cost, particularly for women. Chinese documents from the Jin and Song dynasties, as well as Persian chroniclers like Giovanni and Rashid el-Din from the 13th and 14th centuries, provide hints of the reality. It wasn't just collateral damage when women like you were ripped from houses in Shisha Khwarezmia or the Kipchak steppes. You were parts of a huge machine that bound tribes together, rewarded warriors, and preserved the Khan's heritage. We must follow the journey of the myth-forming individual and the environment that influenced him in order to comprehend this. Toijin had a difficult start in life. Born in 1162 AD on the banks of the Onan River to Helen, a woman taken from the Merkit tribe, and Useg, a minor Borgijin clan chieftain. His father was poisoned by Tatar enemies when he was 9 years old in 1171 AD, and his tribe left his family to the brutality of the barbarians, who reared her offspring on wild roots and small game. The steppe was a cruel school where power was gained by strength or guile and devotion was short. The Merkit's abduction of Toijin's young bride, Bert, in 1181 AD was a wound more severe than any blade. She returned pregnant after he saved her with the help of allies like Jamuka and Togurul. Alpha rumors of doubt plagued their relationship. Yachi, who was born in 1182 AD, was nurtured as his own. Toijin's perspective on the world was influenced by this treachery. Control was survival, and trust was a luxury. He unified the Mongol tribes and assumed the title of Genghis Khan, during which he killed his half-brother Bektar, vanquished Jamuka, and crushed the Naiman. Women were the invisible cogs in his empire, which was a system of control as well as conquering. Using marriage and concubinage, the nomadic and practical Mongols forged alliances and defeated adversaries. Berta, Kulan, Yasui, and Yogan were Genghis' 4 main spouses. A mobile camp that served as a political and domestic cantor. Each was in charge of maintaining order. According to historian Basenjav Turbish's 2023 book, Sex in the Land of Genghis, Hisharam may have consisted of 500 women, although only 44 of them were officially listed as spouses or concubines. These women were frequently highborn captives, offered as tribute to spare their people, such as Chaka, the sister of the Jin emperor, or the daughter of the Tangut king. Genghis traveled from tent to tent every night. The Keshig, a 10,000-strong special army that followed him everywhere, protected his visits. The harem was more than just a luxury. It was a political tactic that used blood and duty to bind vanquished tribes to the Mongol yoke. Imagine yourself captured in Wulahai in 1207 AD, when the city's defenses were destroyed by Mongol siege engines. Herbs and moist wool fills the yurt, a hint of sweetness with a hint of terror. Horses snort, their breath steaming in the cold as the camp hums outside. The continuous drone of stone striking iron as warriors polish their blades. A 16-year-old girl grips her knees, her eyes vacant, an elderly woman mutters prayers in a language you don't understand, her hands calloused from years of work. The steppe is a huge jail, but some people talk of getting out. Moreover, Mongol scouts ride more quickly than imagined. Others talk about surviving, about learning to please, about finding a small window of safety. The brutality of the Mongol system was exact. Women were categorized as slaves, concubines, primary wives, and livestock. Concubines, who were frequently the daughters of vanquished monarchs, lived in opulent cages and were dependent on fecund for favor. Like you, slaves had to deal with more gruesome tasks like cleaning, cooking, or tending to the basic requirements of troops. The Persian chronicler Giovanni described women being exchanged for wealth or horses. They are valued in markets ranging from Samarkand to Karakoram. After a combat, soldiers use captured women to console themselves, according to a 2025 Vocal Media story. To lose favor was to put everything on the line. A silent, unmarked death, enslavement, or banishment to a far-off camp. The rope of power was tight. Although Genghis had total authority, ladies like Bert had sway in the background. Political and military advice, and even generals listened to her. As Turbish points out, Mongol women played a crucial role in nomadic life, herd management, wagon driving, and occasionally fighting. Captives, however, lacked this freedom. You can already feel the pressure of onlookers and the silent need to perform and live. The scarred guard comes back, pointing at you while his boots crunch. You stand with shaky legs, yet your stomach knots. The other women turn away, their silence itself a shout. Genghis was not a man of lust. His sexual behavior was calculated. He incorporated his ancestry into his dominion by enlisting ladies from every tribe, and his sons, according to a 2003 study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics, only 9 of the hundreds, if not thousands, of children he fathered with Berta are known. 5 daughters and 4 sons Yoki, Chagati, Ogadei, and Tului. The others who were born to slaves and concubines vanished into the past, unrecorded names of their mother. As the guard guides you through the camp, you question whether your child will become one of those shadows lost to the great memory of the steppes. The air is pungent with the smell of blood and grilled mutton as the camp squirms beneath a starry sky. With their faces flushed from kumbas, warriors go through the darkness. They roar with glee. You are led to a magnificent yurt with soldiers holding spears that resemble teeth at either side of the entryway. The air within is warm and thick with fur and incense. Genghis is seated on a low stool with his hands on his knees and a map curled at the edges in front of him. Even though his braid is graying and his face is aged, he has the power to bend grass, like the wind. His tone is low, almost whispery, but it conveys authority. The meaning is obvious, even though you don't understand the words. Here, survival is the only option. Genghis was not the only one who did this. The practice was carried on by his sons and successors. AD is documented by Rashid Allen. 4,000 girls were raped before being sold into slavery by their families. The deed served as a reminder of Mongol might and a message. However, there was some kindness in Mongol society. Turbish points out that in Song China, where foot binding was a sign of weakness, adultery once punishable by death to avoid feuds now carried fines, and that unmarried women had access to liberties not available to them. However, such liberties were a myth for prisoners. As the days turn into weeks, you discover this. You learn the rhythms of the camp by heart, including the clatter of soldiers before dawn, the creak of carts as the ordo moves, and the whispered tales told in the shadows. Genghis's eyes harden at rebellion and soften for Berta, demonstrating your ability to interpret his moods. Your house becomes a dim memory as you bury your sorrow. One night, Aisha, a Khorasmian with hawk-like eyes, tells of Genghis and Jamuka, brothers in arms who shared a blanket as young men before Toyin ordered his execution in 1205 AD. The tale serves as a caution. Even the strongest ties can fail. Genghis sacks Zhengdu by 1215 AD, and after, its governor Inalak massacres his envoys. He turns against Khwarezmia. By 1219 AD, the collapse of Otra is described in the 2025 Sky History article. Women enslaved, citizens gutted, per vociferous martyr. The slave trade was a Mongol lifeline that thrived on suffering. The eyes of the new prisoners reflect yours from that first night, and you can see it in them. However, there are glimmers of goodwill. Quen, a Mongol woman, delivers you warm milk from Mar near the Halen Mountains. Her gesture is a lifeline despite her rough hands and old face. Her voice is firm as she teaches you Mongol words. Though they are few, these moments keep you united. As he ages, Genghis again besieges Seashire. In 1227 AD, he is weak, according to whispers, and was hurt in a fall. He passes away close to Yunwan on August 18, 1227 AD, and his body is carried away. According to Marco Polo's tales, 2,000 slaves were slaughtered in order to conceal his grave. You're still in the order, but now a son is watching you. Some women are ignored while others are traded as the harem shifts. You question whether home will always be gone. Genghis Khan's legacy extends beyond his conquests and offspring. It is found in the chronicles, quiet. The women whose identities were lost, Rashid-ud-Din and Yavani, give away the facts. However, the unwritten bears the entire burden. His blood is carried by millions today, but the mothers are phantoms. With the ropes gone, but their pain still present, you sit by yourself. The step goes on forever, and the stars are frigid. You're still scarred, but you made it through. The cries of the forgotten are carried through the ages by the howling winds. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to subscribe to History Nestware. Every night, a new story takes flight.